everybody, my name is Tanya and this is the Try a Story Tag. So the Try a Story Tag is the adaptation that Jen Campbell did of the Try a Chapter Tag. I will have both the original Try a Chapter Tag and Jen's Try a Story Tag linked down in the description. I've been meaning to do this video since Jen first created the Try a Story Tag, and I actually filmed this a week ago, and on reviewing the footage I found that I completely mucked up that introduction and said it was the Try Chapter Tag, Jen's adaptation of the Try a Story Tag. And I couldn't believe when I watched back the footage that I had done that. I kind of sitting there watching myself going, are you serious, Tanya? So I thought I would refilm a new little introduction to this, and then we'll go back to past Tanya with the tag. So I do own quite a number of unread short story collections, and I've got a small selection here. There's definitely more that I could pick from, and I've got a few on the way as well. But I've got 4 books here to start with, and I'll see how I go. The ones that I've got picked out today are Bobcat by Rebecca Lee, The Lottery and Other Stories by Sheila Jackson, The Seeds of Time by Wyndham, and The Birds by Daphne du Maurier. So, as I said, this is only a sample of some of the short story collections that I've got, so I might do another video once I've maybe got through these ones, if I decide that I want to read them all after reading the first story, to look at some of the other short story collections that I own. But for now I'm going to read the first story out of each of these and decide which one I'm going to pick up next. So some of the stories in these are quite long, so it's going to take a while. The light is already wishy-washy as it is here, so things are probably going to change a fair bit, and I might have to move out of my corner here to somewhere a little bit more comfortable. But in either case, I will come back when I've read the first story. So I've just completed the first short story in Bobcat by Rebecca Lee. The one that I read was the title story Bobcat, which centered around a dinner party given by a couple, and it deals with the relationships between the different people, and specifically tensions between the married couples, and also gives some history of the different people who've been brought together for this dinner party, including a woman who was attacked by a bobcat when holidaying in Nepal, resulting in her losing an arm, and hence the title of the story and the collection. Reading this story has definitely left me wanting more from this particular story, but just more from this author in general. And I'm definitely interested to see where this collection goes, so this one at the moment is a tick. Next up, I think I'm going to pick up the Sheila Jackson. So I've just finished the first short story in The Lottery and Other Stories by Sheila Jackson. This one was called The Intoxicated. It was a quick short one, it was only around 6 pages. Bobcat, on the other hand, was around 30 pages, so this one was a lot quicker to get through and a lot faster storyline. This one, funnily enough, is also centered around a party. This one follows the character of a man who is feeling a little intoxicated, and so he goes to the kitchen to try and sober up, and there he has a conversation with the 17-year-old daughter of the house about the future of the world. And that kind of sums it up. It was, as I said, quite a short, quick story. I quite enjoyed it, but I don't think it's given me enough of a feel to gauge this full collection and to gauge Sheila Jackson as yet. I have definite high hopes that I'm going to love Sheila Jackson, and I definitely enjoy this story, but I don't know whether the size of this one is enough to grip me quite so quickly yet. Next up, I'm going to move on to the Wyndham, and this is The Seeds of Time. So I've just finished the first story in The Seeds of Time by Wyndham. This story was called Chroniclism, and it's a short story dealing with the effects of time travel, and a chroniclism in particular being what happens when events happen out of their time because of interference that's happened. And I really enjoyed it. It was a fun little story. It features a man named Gerald who has an interaction with a man who refers to him as something else, and it is kind of a really confusing event, and he mentions a woman named Tavia, and a couple of years go by and he doesn't think much of it, and then he starts seeing this woman around town, and it turns out this is the mysterious Tavia, and things going from there. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it was a lot of fun. The foreword at the start of this one talks about this collection being an experiment in adapting the principles of science fiction to a short story and experimenting with what science fiction actually is. And I really enjoyed it, and I have loved everything that I've read by Wyndham in the past. I haven't tried any of his short fiction before, but if this is a taste of what it's like, I am definitely going to enjoy it as well. Another person that I've read novels by before, but none of their short fiction, is Daphne du Maurier, so I'm super excited to try this as well. This is of course one of the gorgeous Farrago Modern Classic Designer editions. This collection is The Birds, and the very short story is The Birds, which is famous for becoming the Hitchcock movie, which I've not seen but heard things about, so I'm definitely looking forward to diving into this. This one's the longest story of the lot. It goes for 40 pages, so I think I'm going to get myself up and actually onto a comfortable seat to read this one, and things might definitely have changed by the time I get back, but I'm looking forward to diving into this last one and then deciding which one I'm going to go on with. Okay, so I've now just finished The Birds by Daphne du Maurier, and I really enjoyed this. As I said, I haven't read this before, I haven't seen the film of it. I know the general gist, but didn't really know anything about the actual storyline of it. And I very much enjoyed this. As you probably are aware, this is a story about what happens when birds turn evil, and what happens from there. I was left wanting more at the end of this story. I definitely want to know what happens next. So I'm very intrigued to watch the movie at some point to see how it expands on this, whether it follows the bounds of this story or whether it becomes a much bigger thing. But in general, I was really gripped when reading this. It feels quite different to the Daphne du Maurier that I've read in the past. Like, there's that creeping sense through what I've read of hers, but I guess this is more out and out horror. And so I'm really intrigued to see whether the other stories in this collection are along the same lines as The Birds, or whether they're different stories entirely. But I'm definitely intrigued to keep reading this. So I've now read the first story out of each of these collections and have to come to the ranking, deciding kind of part, which is quite interesting. I definitely enjoyed all of these stories for sure, so there's nothing that I don't want to continue on at this stage. I think, as I said, for one that I won't be starting straight away, is The Lottery and Other Stories by Sheila Jackson, simply because the short story of this one wasn't long enough for me to really be captured into this collection, into Sheila Jackson's writing. I very much enjoyed it, and I'm definitely wanting to get to this sooner rather than later, particularly the title story, The Lottery, which I've heard fantastic things about, but I think it's actually the last story in this collection. So while it's not going to be the first one from these four that I pick up, I definitely hope I can get to this soon. I think next after this comes Bobcat by Rebecca Lee. I very much enjoyed this story, but I think the other two are pulling me stronger than this one now to continue on. But again, I really enjoyed this and hope I can get to this one soon as well. So that brings me to The Seas of Time by John Wyndham and The Birds by Daphne du Maurier. Both of these I really want to continue on with. As I said, they're both authors that I've absolutely adored in the past, and this is their first short fiction that I've read, but they're both favourites, so it was pretty likely that I was going to love these. Tossing up which way to go, I am very keen to read both of these collections. Maybe continue on with The Birds first, simply because I know somewhat what to expect for this one now. In the foreword for this, as I said, he spoke about these being experiments in science fiction, and that they're different stories in that it's exploring it in different ways. But in general, I know the bounds of what this is going to be, and I very much want to read it. Whereas, like I said, with this one, I'm very intrigued to see whether the other stories in this collection are like The Birds, in that they're more horror stories, or whether it's a different type of collection altogether. So I think for that intrigue sense, maybe I'll continue on with this one first. But basically these two are both calling to me at the moment, so I think these will be my next two short story collections that I read, and probably I hope to go on with Bobcat and The Lottery and Other Stories after that point as well. Assuming this video has cemented that I definitely want to get to all four of these collections. I definitely still have an interest of these. They've been sitting on my shelf, some of them for quite some time, others not quite so long, but definitely all four of them still have my interest, and from the first stories, they're all going to be great. So let me know in the comments whether you've read any of these collections and which one you would choose to start with first, and if you think I've made the right decision. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!